Every mid-year, there's some big event in League of Legends. These mid-season events bring several updates to the game, like rotating modes, tons of skins, and all kinds of rewards. But there was one event in particular that went down as the best one ever, Spirit Blossom of 2020. That event was straight up fire for a lot of reasons. First off, the skin cinematic that year was all about Ionia, Asian culture, spirits, and folklore. That vibe hits hard for everybody. I don't know anyone who doesn't think that stuff is dope. The event also had its own lore, and some skins that you could explore through a visual novel inside the client. You played as this faceless, nameless character who could interact with the event champions, do quests, and get rewards. And on top of that, Riot brought back a new version of Nexus Blitz, which was a sick twist since it was usually just URF over and over. Not only that, but they also dropped two champions tied to Ionia's spiritual side, Lilia, who's an actual spirit, and Yone, who's a spirit hunter. And as to be expected, Yone completely stole the spotlight from Lilia. He was hyped up for ages. Not exactly hyped in the traditional sense, but Yasuo's lore always had this thing with his brother, and since Yasuo's one of the most popular champs with a sick backstory, there was always that vibe like, Yone is coming, and when he dropped, man, that was legendary. But it doesn't stop there. Riot went all in for that event. They dropped the Kin of the Stained Blade cinematic to set up what was happening in Yasuo and Yone's lore, and it ended with Yasuo heading off to Bilgewater with Ahri, already building hype for the next big event taking place next year. So yeah, that event was absolutely perfect, no complaints. But sadly, all those good things didn't really stick around the next year, because the event that followed was basically the exact opposite of its predecessor. So now that I've told y'all what makes a good event and what was the best event in League's history, in this video I'm going to talk about the worst event in League's history. It's the exact opposite of everything I just said, in the worst way possible, the Ruination event from 2021. At the start of that year, we got an animation with Viego's release, showing him broken and setting up this huge threat to Runeterra that was supposed to be the big event of the year. But sadly, this event was packed with flaws, and honestly, I don't even know where to start. First, about the lore. In the Ruination event, you played this novel in the client where you were a recruit for the Sentinels of Light. Again, another faceless, nameless character. You had to help Senna, Lucian, and Gwen, and collect fragments of Isolde's soul scattered all over Runeterra. To do that, we used this Sentinel weapon that somehow let us teleport around. For some reason, it was just chilling at some random Sentinel base in the hands of some rando. But whatever, then we'd travel across regions, fighting off the Black Mist, trying to gather allies, and attempting to take the fragments of Isolde away from Viego. Big emphasis on trying, because Viego would always just roll up and snatch the fragments from us like it was nothing. To progress through the lore, you had this map and a bunch of missions you had to play in League to get event points and move forward. Kinda like a battle pass. But the problem was it took forever to progress through just one part of the story. Every part needed 100 points to advance, and you'd get those by playing Summoner's Rift, winning games, getting kills, but you'd only get like 5 to 15 points per game. So like, to put it in perspective, each region had a section split into 5 parts. To move through each one, you needed like 35 to 50 points, and you'd basically only get a tenth of that per match, meaning to get through the whole event, you'd have to play like 10 games per section. If you were just here for the lore and the visual novel, it was a brutal grind just to get some mid-rewards like an emote or an icon. Sure, Riot eventually patched it and increased the points per game, but bro, we spent way too long stuck in that lame, tedious system. League games are like a minimum of 15 minutes, and this was back when even if 4 people voted yes to surrender, one guy could stop it. So yeah, the event progression was trash, but was the story at least worth that grind? Nah, like following the story, interacting with the champs, all that was kinda cool at first, mostly because nobody knew how it would end yet, so people were curious, but still, meh. Moving on to the next part of the event, the skins. Unlike the Spirit Blossom skins, which were not really canon, these skins were 100% canon. Basically, every region Senna, Lucian, and Gwen passed through had a champion who would help them, and they'd ask that champion to join the Sentinels to fight Viego. First was Vayne in Demacia. She was already a monster hunter, so she just got this new Sentinel look, which honestly looked pretty clean and even became one of the legendary skins in the bundle. Then there was Olaf in Freljord and Riven in Noxus, and to be honest, both of their motivations were super mid. Olaf just wanted to fight Viego hoping he'd finally die in battle, and Riven wanted to redeem herself cause she'd been locked up in Noxus. That's it, they joined the squad and that was that. Then they head to Ionia, where they recruit Irelia, but Viego corrupts Karma and turns her into his servant. And bro, that's one of the wildest things cause Karma is one of the most powerful entities in all of Ionia. Nah, not just Ionia, in all of Runeterra. And Viego just waltzes in and corrupts her like it's nothing. The next skins in the Sentinels of Light bundle were all about champions getting ruined, meaning Viego was basically controlling them with the mist and corruption. The other champs he got before Karma were Shyvana and Draven, and honestly, those two at least made sense. Shyvana always struggled with being seen as a monster in Demacia, so Viego used that to control her. And Draven, well, dude's not exactly a genius and he's kinda weak, so Viego wouldn't have much trouble with him. But Karma, come on, that just didn't sit right. Then they head to Targon, where the Sentinels recruit Diana, and Viego resurrects Pantheon. But not really. Honestly, the Pantheon we know in League is Atreus, a human who got Pantheon's celestial war power after the Celestial died. So technically, his name shouldn't even be Pantheon anymore, but he kept it after taking over the role. But since Viego can use the mist to resurrect and control the dead, he brings back the original celestial Pantheon through Atreus's body, making Pantheon return, which was a dope detail and made way more sense than, like, corrupting karma. Something else that made no sense. The Sentinels just casually climbed all the way up Mount Targon like it was no big deal. They even saw Viego fighting Pantheon at the top. Wild, man. But anyway, the worst skin of the whole batch was Sentinel Graves. That's because the next region should have been Piltover and Zaun, where, like before, a local champ should have joined the Sentinels to fight the mist. But nope. Know why? Because Piltover apparently had these giant fans blowing the black mist away. Bro, what even was that? Giant fans on rooftops just blasting away the mist? Like, at least make it so Janna was creating some wind currents or something. But nah, it was just fans, man. So instead of using a local champ, Riot just threw Graves in there, cause why not? And of course, Graves even stole one of Isolde's fragments to sell, and then the Sentinels were like, yeah sure, come join us. Makes zero sense. You know what else makes no sense? That you've watched this far and still haven't liked the video or subscribed. I'm also looking for a narrator, so take a look at the description or fixed comment if you're interested. But back to it, ignoring the fact that Graves is from Bilgewater, but got put in Piltover. The next region was Bilgewater. Here, Misfortune steals one of Isolde's soul fragments to give to Viego in exchange for power. For those who don't know, the Ruined King game was supposed to drop before this event, but it got delayed cause of the pandemic. In that game, there's a teaser that maybe Sarah, aka Misfortune, ends up getting corrupted in her quest for power to take down GP and reclaim Bilgewater. That's her whole plot in the game, struggling to stay true or give in to revenge. But here, they just threw all that character development in the trash. She takes Viego's power, gets this new corrupted look, which honestly looks way better than her ruined skin in League. Then the Sentinels get help from Pike, who just helps out cause Viego's name popped up on his list. Pike in this event was basically a schizophrenic dude, rambling about his list and threatening to kill his own teammates for no reason. In the Ruined King game, he's kinda like that too, but at least it makes more sense there. Here, he's just a personality-less wall. Anyway, next region, Ixtal. Here, they recruit Rengar. Probably got hit hardest by this crappy narrative. He went from being this badass strategic hunter who fought the Void to a dumb little kitty. And to make it worse, in Ixtal, Thresh shows up to Lucian and makes a deal. In exchange for an Isolde's fragment, he shows Lucian a sentinel weapon that can revive the dead, then dips with the fragment. Like, seriously? Lucian trusts Thresh, the literal monster who killed his wife, and hands over the fragments they're supposed to be protecting? I get he was worried about Senna, but man, even for Lucian, that's peak dumb. After that, Lucian goes to Akshan and Shurima, who's using the Absolver, a legendary weapon that can revive the dead, to bring his mentor back. But along the way, Lucian and the recruit both die. Literally just get smoked by a black mist horde. Then, Akshan wipes them out and just revives both of them. No big deal. But his mentor couldn't be revived, so he decides to join the crew to stop Viego. Then they all head to the Shadow Isles to confront Viego. They even run into Yorick, who casually mentions that his Maiden of the Mist, his ultimate, is actually a fragment of Isolde, just like Senna and Gwen, but she is the fragment containing all of Isolde's bad emotions. So they set a trap, but it backfires. Viego wipes the floor with everyone using specters and opens a portal to Camavor with Vex's help, as she had been assisting him in gathering the fragments. In Camavor, Viego resurrects Isolde, killing Gwen and Senna in the process. Then Akshan sneaks up, kills Isolde again with the Absolver, and revives both Senna and Gwen, who then trap Viego in Camavor. And that's it. Happy ending. Let's go. The event ends with everyone fine. Viego locked up, and the mist pushed back to the Shadow Isles cause reasons. Thresh takes advantage, steals some of Viego's power, and becomes Unbound Thresh, now roaming Runeterra doing his own thing with a chunk of the black mist. All of that mess I just told you happened across the whole event. And to make it even more confusing, Riot dropped multiple cinematics telling similar but slightly different stories. And as if that wasn't enough, Wild Rift had its own event storyline called Sentinels of Light Steadfast Heart that told basically the same event, but with different details, making it even more confusing. All this confusion because Riot decided to put the narrative direction, like the whole lore production, in the hands of the skin team instead of the writers who literally get paid to write League's lore. They gave it to the folks who just design how the champs look. So naturally, it all turned into a mess. Like, look at Spirit Blossom. We got a whole revamped Nexus Blitz with a brand new map, totally different dynamics. But here, we just got Ultimate Spellbook, where you could swap one of your summoner spells for another champ's ult. Theoretically cool, but in practice, it was just another faster League game where your champ had a bonus ult. And honestly, most people just wanted to grab Cho'Gath's ult to go giga-sized. It was a mode that got old fast, especially if you played solo. As for champs launched with the event, we got Akshan and theoretically Vex, but she got delayed cause her shadow was too heavy for the game engine. Took like 2 months to release her. Unlike Yone and Lilia, who brought cool new things to the lore and were super fun with dope designs, Akshan was just bad. Like, sure, his revive mechanic is cool, but so much about about him doesn't make sense, especially in the lore. If the Absolver exists, how do the Kindred still ferry people to the afterlife? Also, Vex arrived way too late, and now her lore means basically nothing. She adds nothing to the Yordle storyline at all. Another similarity to Spirit Blossom. Thresh got a human-looking skin back in 2020, but this time they made it completely canon and way less detailed, since this skin is basically just an excuse to release censored Thresh in Wild Rift because of all the skull censorship stuff that's not allowed in China. Then, the event ended, and Riot basically said, yeah, we're done, no follow-up, nothing else. And that was it. He was never mentioned again and just kind of disappeared. Even though there's plenty of potential for side stories after the Ruination, like with Thresh, Viego, etc., Riot literally hasn't done anything about it since. So for all those reasons, the 2021 Ruination event was, without a doubt, the worst League of Legends event of all time.